We'll talk about, in general, about the teaching, not only innovative methods of teaching, but in general about the teaching, what is for, why we do teaching, what are the teaching goals, and how we can do effective teaching, how we should prepare the lecture, and some tips how to do it. So teaching. So there is a teaching, universities, schools, and so on. So we have a teaching part, and then we have society. Okay. So in teaching part, we do lectures, exercises, practicals, tutorials, and so on. And then we want to transfer this to the society, which makes applications, innovations, and so on. So we're preparing the people by teaching to work for the society, which will invent, which will apply, and so on. So we're preparing people to go to the society and to work and to invent. Okay? So, but how it works? So we do this, and then we do reports, evaluations, exams, midterm reviews, and so on. Okay? And we evaluate our students. But if this evaluation is correct? Not really. Because when I'm teacher, I know what I taught well and not well. I know what my students understand well and what is understood wrong. Okay? So when I do this evaluation, I am biased. I'm not really it's very difficult to be very honest by myself. Because I did the lecture and I know what I said to my students. So I'm asking the questions exactly what I taught them. Right? But is it my role of a teacher to do this? No. My role is to teach the concepts. But anyone from the field could ask you a questions and to say if I taught well or no the topic. Okay? So in some universities, the exams and evaluation is not done by a professor who is teaching the topic. Okay? So I think it's more correct approach. Because if no, I can be very honest, but I will not get completely unbiased from my teaching itself. So there is a huge conflict of interest actually in this. If you teach and you evaluate, you teach, evaluate. So you evaluate by somehow your own performance for the student. Okay? So you cannot evaluate very badly also. Okay? So there is a problem. Yeah. So there is then a question how to evaluate what I did here and what I got here. Because this is the aim. Okay? So I taught the students get knowledge, experience, understanding in the field. And when they go to society, applies, innovates, and they create. Okay? So it's very complicated. It's a big deal. There is no solutions. It's just problematic. Okay? And then there is society. Then they ask the universities and so on to follow the innovations, the applications, and so on. Because sometimes we will get in university that we teach the old thing, which is out of time, and so on. And the students, they feel that because they come from society and the teacher is not following. I heard he's laughing. Gabriel knows about who I'm talking. Yeah, so sometimes it's out of time. So actually the teacher in university, and whatever, not even in university, the teacher in general has to follow society demand. He has to follow the evolution. It has to be in time. So it's very important, this part. So the general teaching goals is to inspire the students. So it means that how we can inspire a student. If I stand, I write the things on the table, and then I talk time to time towards you, and come back, I write again, I'm sure we will not be inspired. We need to have some enthusiasm. We need to feel that I like the topic, that it's some part of your life actually teaching. And students recognize very well bad and good teachers, passionate and not passionate. You cannot hide that. You cannot, it's like enthusiasm and passion is not something you can imitate, to create, or to be artificial. You will feel that, okay? So if you don't like this teaching part, it would better you don't do because you will suffer in your life. But then sometimes your opinion is changing. When I started my career as a teacher, I didn't like doing it. It was a suffering for me because it's a topic which I didn't know, because it was in French language, and for me it was a big deal. Today I like a lot. For me it's a pleasure to stand with some students and to share what I know. So it's important to like what we're doing and to give a feeling of sharing, okay? And yeah, and the best teacher who helps the student to get the most of them, okay, to get into career and to accomplish their career and to find their way. So it's very important. So then the second role is to help students to master fundamentals. It doesn't mean that you need to spend your time of the lecture just transferring information which is written in the book to the student, because student can read the book. Or, for example, some students will do, some teachers will do, for example, you will not get the notes, so you need to come to my lecture, and then you write all the time, sitting here and you write, and I will transfer information. But it's losing of the time. Because if I ask you to write during my lecture what I am saying, because it's only way to give information, at that time when you're writing, you are not thinking. There is no thinking. Then say, okay, I will note everything, and I will read later, and I understand later at home. This is the feeling that we have. And at home, you say, okay, what does it mean by that? Okay, something like this, when you need to reread and so on. So the time in lecture has to be spent not to transfer information as written here to here, but to help to understand this information. So when you prepare a lecture, the most important thing is to give as much information as you can in your support, outcomes, and outline, and so on. So you need to prepare the slides or whatever support for your lecture, which gives you the information. And then you spend the time to explain and to help to understand the basics. There is no need in the lecture to put many things, many details, many stuff. No. If you help students to understand the basics, he will be able to see these examples by his own and to understand it. So the concepts. The only thing important is the concept. Then you need to prepare the students for lifelong learning. It's very important. So it means that you need to teach how to learn, to help them, to show a way how to understand the topic, how to get into the topic, to show some methods, some tips, and so on. And you need also, through your lectures, to give like methodology of learning methodology, showing an example how to get into the topic. So it means you need to develop like critical and creative thinking, okay, through your topic. So it's not only topic which is important. It's also important to teach learning, because to learn something by heart, there is no meaning, okay? Because it's a short time memory. You will forget. But to teach someone how to learn a topic, where to find information, how to understand this information, this is something which is remaining, and then can be used in the future. And also the information is changing. Some basics we have the same, but when the products and so on, everything evolves with time. So actually then person who learned the basics and learned how to learn, he will continue by himself. So it's you like an introductor to the topic. Okay? But no way is just transcript information from here to here. This is not useful process. And then also a good teacher gives skills to communicate. Because communication today, it's more and more important and becomes the heart of everything. If you want to get a job, you need to communicate well, and so on. And even during your life, you need professional life. You need this. It's very important. So that's why teacher needs to seek to encourage and so on to speak everyone in the lecture. Everyone. That is why I am using this, and usually students are shy. Okay? So it's not so easy to miss it. That's why I'm using, for example, this method which is anonymous and lets you to say opinion, whatever you think, even if it's maybe stupid idea, whatever. But no one will know that you said this. So it gives some confidence And sometimes students will see, oh, but my ideas was some value, and you learn to express yourself. So we need to teach them what to say first, so some information, some understanding, and then how to say. So it's important what, and then after how. So we need to get communication skills. So it's the main 4 teaching goals. You see, I didn't say you need to do exactly these equations, demonstrations, and so on. You need to help to understand. So what is effective teacher? A good teacher. How we recognize a good teacher? Usually a good teacher is well organized and very clear. Okay? So it means that it gives objectives, explains very well, and also is able to make difficult topic, difficult to understand, easy one. So it means they find a way to present, illustrate in such a way that you are able to understand. Then there is analytic and synthetic approach. Uses this type. So it means that good teacher knows very well his own field that he is teaching. He knows very well. He read a lot about. This is important. And it uses various theories. It means that different theories which exist on the topic. Then compares and gives a critical comparison. Not telling one stuff, but saying what is defect, what is advantage, disadvantage, and so on. Also usually knows the past, present, and the future of the field, how it evolved the field. Knows the origin, how it was invented, how it happened, and so on. And also discusses different point of views. Because sometimes you just focus on your own point of view, but a good teacher will be able to say there is a different point of view, not only his own one. A good teacher is dynamic and motivated. So it's always dynamic, energetic, enthusiastic. You feel that he's enjoyed teaching, has a self-confidence, because if you feel that someone is not very clear and you try to overcome all this one, I don't remember. So it immediately gives you some opinion on yourself. So you need to be confident what you mean. And also he loves the field that he's teaching. Okay? So it's very important feeling what you're giving to the class. Then there is a teacher-class interaction. A good teacher doesn't speak alone. It tries to get discussion, tries to communicate, and to keep active everyone. Not only one person. Some teachers will select a victim. And this victim will be always discussing. It's not dialogue. Okay? It's try to interact with everyone, with all class. Okay? So no child left behind. Okay? So everyone is happy. Yeah. So stimulates interaction, encourages independent thinking, accepts criticism. It's very important. If someone says, oh, maybe it's wrong, it considers this concern, and accept. Sometimes you may be wrong. Sometimes it happens we make a mistake, and sometimes it's by accident, and sometimes we misunderstood. And it's very good point when teacher accepts it was my mistake. Because it gives a confidence to student also. So you should not think about yourself, you should think about the student's feeling. Good public speaker, and also feels the motion of the audience. Okay? So it means that he feels if the audience is following, if he's sleeping, if he's not, and so on. Or it's understanding or not understanding. And a good teacher is sensitive to this emotion. Okay? So it means if he starts to feel that the students are not following, he stops, comes back to make everyone comfortable, and continues. Lecture is not a speed performance. How much I will do slides, how much information I will put on. Is not at all this. A good lecture, when you finish your lecture, said, okay, they understood. It's better the student understand one thing important when you said 10 things and no one understood. It's really not useful. Okay? And so uses humor effectively, time to time it's the jokes and so on. Not all the time. Okay. It's too much because people need some concentrate also at some point and understand. Yeah? And he's concerned about the quality of teaching. It means that it doesn't only, think, okay, but, I did give lecture, I don't care, okay, next time I will do better. He's concerned about how it was perceived by students and so on. And there is the last thing is the teacher-student individual interaction. So it was audience and teacher, and there is then teacher and student individually. The good teacher is perceived as someone who is just fair, very honest, and always judging correctly. So it means a good teacher don't have some preferences or some contrary pushing down because they don't like for some reason. Okay, so it includes evaluation, not only during the lectures in general, but also evaluation. We feel that, okay, I did bad, I got bad notes. He did a good job, next time I'll do better. But you don't feel that you under-evaluated and so on. And then it's also someone who is approachable. It means that you feel very, very free to come and to speak. And to speak not only about the lecture. Usually a good teacher is contacted by the students to ask advices about other things. Life, career, choices of things and so on. So this is a sign of good teacher. So then we have 10 worst mistakes a teacher should not do during the lecture. So, for example, you ask a question and you immediately call for volunteers. I ask the question, who wants? You want? Immediately. And students will become shy. Immediately they avoid eye contact, hiding. Immediately, it's not me. Okay? So actually, usually this type of a calling, immediately, you just ask a question, who, you ask. So usually the student, it's finished, but you get, 1 or 2 volunteers commonly in the class, who's always answering your questions. So these guys will reply, but others it will be. Or if you don't have these common volunteers, like each day volunteer, you will finish by answering yourself. So this is like, then also like cold calling, what is called. Don't use cold calling. So for example, you explain something and then you say, okay, now I want to answer my questions that you answer. And then it's a cold calling. You had no time to think. I just explained something. I asked a question, answer. And then it stops thinking a student because they are afraid, they are shy, they had no time to think and they need to answer in front of everyone. They are not ready. And usually, if you apply all the time this technique, the students will be like, rabbit. Okay, who is next victim? And this feeling is not comfortable for thinking. So we should avoid this feeling. The student should feel free, and if we want to say, they will say, and they have a time to think, and so on. That's why, for example, these techniques like using anonymously until you write your message and so on. You can wait a couple of minutes. Everyone wants answer or not answering. They give where it remains less personal and it helps you to express yourself. So don't do these PowerPoint shows when you prepare a lot of slides and then go how much we can show. Yeah, it's really, or for example, just putting many notes or text even, and then reading it. Then you see the text, you see the guy reading, you read, you listen, you don't listen, you don't read, and I will read at home. Never mind. Let's let him to speak. I will do something else in the meantime because I can do it later. So it's lost time for everyone because you sit in the class and you don't do nothing actually, and the guy is speaking, but I don't know for what, and so yeah. So if you always use the same method of teaching, and so sort of, okay, I always show PowerPoint and then go on PowerPoint. Okay, or always write just on the board. So you need to use variety of techniques to break the routine. Okay, you need to You can use PowerPoint, videos, exercises, questionnaires, board writing. You need to mix the techniques. It's very important, and it also kills the sleeping time. Because when you change technique, something happening. So you come back to the life. Yeah. So, and also the same when you cannot always continue in the monologue and to tell the theory. So you need somehow to stop, to do some application, to tell some story, to attract attention and so on. So you need to break routine all the time. Because if you put in a routine, 15 minutes, sleeping guys. Yeah. Then it's very good to use group work. It's very useful because it helps to develop interpersonal communication skills and so on. But it needs to have accountability, personal one. So it means if you do a group work, at the end you need to get a personal note and personal contribution. So it's not so easy, but it's always better to get, because you very frequently get frustration from students. Oh, I get with the guy, he's no nothing, I did all the job, and he had a good note and me also. Or because of this guy, I got bad note. So you need to, it needs to be correct evaluation. Okay, it's a group. It's important to work in a group. It's important to learn to work with someone and accept someone's idea. But then evaluation has to be personal. Then sometimes we have a lecture and students, it's very frequent claim from students which comes, what is used for? What is related to that? I don't understand what is serving for this lecture and what is about, what is used in life. So this is very important to keep relevant and to present to technology, developments and so on, real life, what is used. Because if you just equation, there is no motivation. So to create motivation, you need to show real life. Then to use too long tests or exams. Said, exam 2 hours, we had 7 exercises, I have no time to finish. And think that in exam, you evaluate the knowledge, not the speed of doing exercises. Okay, it's not a problem solving speed evaluation. Okay, we want to know and to understand or know. So we need to give sufficient time to think and to understand. Don't get into routine. What does it mean? It's not only using one method and repeating and so on. When you're a teacher or lecturer in university, it may happen that 5 years, 10 years, you're teaching the same topic. First year you prepare, second year you still work a little bit because it's still not finished, because you had no time. The first years, usually it evaluates. But when you meet professor after 30 years teaching in organic chemistry, for example, and it comes with yellow papers in the hands and reads these papers, it's dead. It's routine. The guy takes his papers from one year to another one, the same papers, and he reads the same papers. And he's not enthusiastic for students. You see how much so even for yourself, when you read the same paper, 30 times, for example, you know by heart, more or less, you read it. What is your motivation to read it? No. So you need to put some challenge to yourself. Because if you prepared 1 week ago, usually I prepare in the evening, because if I prepare 1 week ago, then I forget what I did. So it depends on the person how much time before you need to prepare. But and then you are fresh, you are challenged, you add some new things and so on. So you are motivated by yourself. Because if you are not motivated, students will feel that you are not motivated. So this routine is very dangerous for your own motivation. It's just like robot, you come and so you can make a video of yourself. You just put the same video. It will be the same thing. It would be best you do the first time when you teach, like this, you're always motivated. And then you just show the same video. It's very bad when there is no clear objectives in your lecture. Okay, you don't know where we go, and you will stop, and then we'll arrive, and so on. And objectives, it's not only to say what kind of topics we'll teach. At the beginning, say, okay, we'll do this type theory. No, it's not only this. Our objective is also your learning objective. So what at the end I will be able to do. And it's very important. It's very difficult to define, especially when you teach some fundamental stuff. But it's very good for the student to know, okay, the objective was this, and at the end of the courses, you know that you achieved this. You know that you learned this. So it has to be related to the content and very, very clearly identified. And these objectives has to be also a basis of the exams, assignments, and so on. It means that if you give a clear objectives of learning at the beginning, the student knows what you expect from him in the exam and what kind of exam it will be. Right? So it's not easy exercise to define all this, but if you do this, everyone feels very comfortable. And if disrespect students, when you don't respect their opinion, you don't respect the person, then you kill everything, all the communication, and then it's lost. Your lecture is lost. Yeah. So usually you do two things: research and teaching. And usually you have three types of person, maybe even four. One, what is we call perfect teachers. They don't do research, and they teach and they teach. They spend their hours and hours in the classroom preparing the lectures, the models. They are responsible for the teaching and so on. They are passionate about the teaching, and they spend all their life just in teaching. They don't do any more research. Then we have researchers who likes to do just research and not teaching. And then they come to do lecture. They are suffering from doing lecture. And we do as quickly as we can. We prepare as quickly as we can, and then everything quickly, because I need this service that I need to do, but I'm not at all motivated to do it. And of course, students may identify very clearly, oh, this one is a good researcher, but lecture. This one is a good teacher, but we don't know what he's doing in research. And then some persons, they are very rare with persons, which they come, they give a perfect lectures, and you know that he's very good scientist. Whereas this person, but they are very rare. And how to avoid this feeling? I had this feeling personally. I said you at the beginning, but I didn't intentionally what I said. I accepted the position of associate professor. Oh, we do this teaching 192 hours. This is suffering. I want to write my papers. I want to do, and again, this practical. It was a suffering for myself, but terrible. And actually, you need to combine. And then I changed university. I moved to very short service and so on. But I started to teach the things which I am doing in research, more closer what I'm doing. And I changed the method of teaching also. It happened the same thing, or everything happened at the same time. I changed university, I changed the method of teaching. And it changed. When you try to relate your teaching and research, it means goes together. Then everything is okay. So how to do that? Everything will be compatible. Everything gives you satisfaction. Okay? How to make it? So you can include your research topics, research results in your lectures. You can make some sort of seminar at some point to your students. Usually students, they like when you start to talk about your field, because usually you're very passionate about this, and you start to tell, explain what it's serving for, and so on, and they like usually this part. So you can include this. It's already reduce your hours if you want, and also talk about your research. Also, you can invite students to the seminars, to other activities, to show research to the students. You can invite, include some research achievements to the lectures. You can analyze some research papers in the lectures to learn the critical thinking and so on, which relates. So you can relate. You can show recent developments and so on. So you can attract your lecture, even if you teach the fundamentals, you can attract your research to this, or research results to your teaching. And then also, don't forget that teaching is not only teaching you, learning, transferring knowledge and so on, is also to inspire students and find the good students and to attract you work in your group. It's also an idea. This is why they're very motivated to go to the faculty and to teach master students. Because then you can know the students and then you can attract the good students. So it's also identify potential, your PhD students. So it's very important to inspire them. Then you can do outreach activities. and to talk about your research. So you can do teaching also differently. For example, to give a lectures in not a lecture, but explain your activity, professional activity and research. For example, in schools, to go to the schools or some other outreach activity to the large public. And the first time I did, I think 2 years ago, when I went to the college of my son, and then you need to talk to 11 years old guys and to say what I am doing is not so easy. But when you see with no eyes, looking and think, oh, you're doing it, and then you have such satisfaction in yourself. You are happy because immediately you feel that probably these people, public, society, they like what you are doing. They appreciate what you're doing. The same, there are many other day of science, there is nights of scientists and so on. And when you go and you discuss with the public, you get a satisfaction. When you get appreciation of the public, what are you doing? So you find this relationship between society and science, and very important this part. And then you can bring teaching to research. Okay, so you can bring research to the teaching, and then you can bring teaching to the research. So what we are doing, for example, with Marie Curie project, we bring a teaching to the research. We're teaching through the research. Okay? We can organize summer schools, and also we teach the same. We teach research. We can go to the summer schools organized by some other persons and to give lectures on your topic and so on. We can give lectures in the doctoral school. We can give invited lectures to non-expert audience in other laboratories and so on. So actually you can mix all this and it becomes your normal life. There is students, different levels and so on. And it becomes a pleasure. But you should not separate, oh, this is teaching, this is research. So this is wrong way. Try to combine everything together. And then everything runs correctly. So to prepare a lecture, well, it's very standard. I don't want to spend a lot of time because we're already out of the shadow. So what is important in a lecture is a clear agenda. The students would know this exam is in this date or this month, this week. You have midterm review in this part, how it's organized, practicals and so on. There is reports, presentation and so on. So everything has to be as clear as possible and given at the beginning. When you start lecture, you explain the shadow how it will happen. It's very important. Then, of course, outline, synopsis, you need to explain what are the objectives, what are the topics will be treated, and so on. And try to finish each lecture by a conclusion, explaining what is serving to the whole topic and so on, to make a link between all what you are teaching. So it's very important at the beginning to introduce and to finish to explain how everything is related. Handouts. So I already talked that it's not interesting, it's not useful to just give information. It's not giving information. It's understanding information. So it's very important handouts. Or you give a book to read, or you give something else. But you give this information, which you don't need anymore to transcribe from one stuff to another stuff. It's because it's not useful. Yeah. And also you need to think about backups. For example, when you use some technology stuff and it's not working, internet is not working or something else. So you need to be ready to use another way. We have images or something like this. So you need to be ready for technical issues in case you use technology. Yeah, and then include when you need to, your lecture need to be prepared in such a way that you would be able to keep focus. It means you need to be attract attention continuously of your students, not at the beginning, not at the end, but continuously you need, okay, there is something happening, and then there is attraction, so we look at it. To keep focus of your students, you should not treat more during one lecture than 5 main points. So really you focus, and if it's concept is very important, it's even better to stop with one concept. Then of course depends how much of hours you have of lecture, how much larger is the topic and so on. But the concepts usually we are not so numerous in the topic. So you just need to stop on the concept. So you need to introduce always objective key points, give summary. At the end of lecture, give summary. Like you said, print an image of everything what you said. And then it's very, very important to use effective illustrations of the main points. So if you teach 5 points, or 3 points, or whatever the concept that you want to explain, the illustration of the concept is a key point. It's not enough just equation and so on. So, and I took as an example this acoustic and optical phonons from Kittel. It's a very known book. Everyone knows this book, especially the physicists. And this image, everyone knows this image. This is a phonons in a Kittel book. Okay. It's not me who find an error. It was professor who I did my postdoc in Oxford. He taught 30 years in Oxford University solid state physics. And after 30 years teaching, before his retirement, said, but where is the mistake in this image? But how no one noticed? There is a mistake in this image. I'm quite sure there is a mistake. What is wrong with this image? Huh? And I'll show how he found out by himself. I need to change the software. He did a software for students for teaching to help them to understand the phonons. So, see? So this is the software you can change the damping, velocity, wavelength, and so on. So you have 2 chains with 2 different atoms, like in the Kittel. You have green and red. Okay? And actually, well, I click many things in it. It's not so important. But if you see the amplitude, because the mass is not the same of 2 atoms, it's not the same. You agree? The amplitude of the wave, it's not the same of the green and the red atoms because of a difference in mass. But in Kittel, it's exactly the same. And no one noticed because it's so conceptual, it's so accepted by first, I don't know how many years it's accepted. Kittel is the Bible of solid state physics. And even you not question yourself. And he did this software for the students to play with the damping and so on. It's a free software. If you go on his website, MyGlazer, you will find many small softwares like this for solid state physicists. Because I was clicking on the computer. Yeah, and he noticed just at that point, he did a software for the students and he was testing, said, but the amplitudes are different. And you see, in Kittel is exactly the same. Yeah. Oh, it's not very, it doesn't change really a lot of things because in theory it's explained, but the illustration is wrong. So you see, when you use illustrations such as illustrations which are dynamics, software, simulations, and so on, you see more things immediately than a simple static image. I know it takes time, but some passion teachers, there are many softwares now available free you can find. You just need to spend time to find them and so on. But to use this type of tool, they also interesting. Oh, you open this stuff, you click on this, okay, this is doing this. And it's a learning, active learning. And you like this. It's not only looking to yeah. So we discussed a little bit already about that. But the lecture, the teacher who is speaking alone, monologue, and this is, for example, in the case it happens very frequently, not in small lectures, but in amphitheaters when you have 150 students. So normally, lecturer is in front and speaking alone, 2 hours speaking alone. Yeah. So what is for these lectures? Some were sleeping, some were thinking, sometimes about lecture, sometimes no. Sometimes making notes, and then we think that we understand later. All my university, I did like this. I did notes, I tried to write everything what he's saying, and then I was trying to read at home. But as my writings are very bad, so I need to ask someone, because I could not understand what I wrote. But it's anyway. It would be better I spend the time to listen and then to take notes of someone. It would be more efficient way. But anyway, I did an effort to write everything. Yeah? But in most cases, it's very rare that it serves understanding. That's why it's important is now communication tools, like doing interrogating, because now, I mean, with mobile phones, you have also clickers. Some universities have clickers, so you don't need to use your mobile phone. You connect, just click A, B, C, or D, and so on. And you have answers, and the students, even 150 people can participate in the lecture. You can ask. So how to avoid this information transcription? Because this is, in most cases, what is serving the lectures is to transfer information. Our students will not read books, so I need to explain. I need to give this information. So how to avoid this? You need to assign the homeworks. This is the method that's proposed already many years ago, just-in-time teaching code. And so you assign a homework. It should not be too big homework. Because if you expect that your students will read 20 pages before your lecture, never. I tried. It doesn't happen. Okay, welcome. No, okay. And then your lecture is not ready. So you need to assign something not too complicated to read. Some concepts, 1 or 2 pages. Like this, students, they have already in their heads the terms, they heard the words, they saw the words, they understood something, and you start not from zero. It means that not all information is new. So it's very good to use this small assignment before. If you already advanced in the lecture, you can assign, for example, some quiz at home, which you can prepare some quiz online, just selecting just the answers and so on. And then the students read before lecture, the assignment or do the test and so on. They write answers, comments and so on. And then you analyze the responses. You may ask questions that we don't understand this or we don't know this term and we don't know what it is and so on. You analyze the responses and your lecture is dedicated to help them to understand this topic. So your lecture is dynamic. It's not something independent from your students. It's not something you just prepared 10 years ago. I come, whatever you are, I give you the same topic. Okay? So I don't talk to whatever you are the student, intelligent, not intelligent, understanding, not understanding, I always deliver the same thing. In this case, your teaching is dynamic. It means that your teaching is adjusted to the student's needs. It's not so easy to put in place because you need to be also very dynamic and reactive to it. But if you're mastering well your field, you can do it. So it means they read some concepts, you come back, you re-explain these concepts, the students understand much easier, and you stop on the points which is not clear. You can come back on the points which are not clear. And the same when you do tests, you come back on the things which is not clear. Yeah. And then in the class you can discuss, you can also show the results of their performance, you can show many things, and then so for this type of assignments, you can use many different platforms, which you can be some cost transcription and so on. Me personally, I'm using MIT education platform, but also we have MOOCs. Many universities have different platforms for reading. So I use MIT university platform, which is free and accessible to everyone. And then I create a lecture, which I put some stuff to read. And I say assign, okay, I assigned this document to read. And then the students can go to read and to comment. So here you see, so this is what the text to read. And the students, for example, we underline this part and they put a comment, what we understood or what we don't understand and so on. So I see this comment, but also other students can reply. So then you can select that the comment is only to the teacher or the teacher would not see and so on. So you have some freedom. Who is seeing your comments? So you write the comments. And actually, if it works well with the students, you even can evaluate this part and to put a note on it. Because you see how much if they do well teaching, learning, if they follow the text, if they really spend the time to understand, or the questions which you're writing something very clearly, oh, I don't understand this part. But it's not real work. So you see how we are implied in reading. Then there is also very important is the style, how you present your lecture, how you are speaking. Okay? It's recommended not to read. Really, something is the worst what you can do is to read your lecture. Yeah? If you want to evaluate yourself, because it's very difficult to see yourself, record yourself and listen. It will give you an impression how you perform. Just don't do intentionally at home. You know, if you speak and you record it, you will get some crazy text. No, just record it during the lecture and then listen yourself. You see how you are good. It would help a lot of to improve it. You need to make eye contact with the students, so don't speak this way, because then students don't feel considerate. And don't watch always to the same one. No, you will feel bad. 5 seconds per student is enough. The comfortable contact is 5 seconds. Okay, not more, not 1 minute. Don't insist on the eye contact. Yeah, and you feel uncomfortable. You agree with you feel uncomfortable at that point. It's so me. Yeah. So try to don't do this not to see anyone. You can see the students. You see what you're observing, but don't spend too long to be contact with the same person. Yeah. So face audience, stay in front. So it also shows that when you face audience, you show that you master your topic. You know what is behind. Because you are always like this, it depends how much you know your topic. The more you stand like this, the more you show, I know what is on the backside. So it's also showing confidence, staying like this. Yeah? Avoid too long monologue. I feel that I'm already too long speaking alone. And yeah, and always engage discussion. This is very, very important. Yeah, then how to engage your audience. So, attract attention. Okay? So, the stories, anecdotes, jokes, videos, things like this, which is breaking, attracts attention. Show enthusiasm. So, integrate discussions, active learnings, mobile phones if you want, and so on. I heard that one of my colleagues, after the lecture which I gave during introductory school, said, how do you all the time keeping us like this? Because you are always on this phone and you know that the question is coming and you're again participating. You don't have the time to relax. Yeah. Use technology in teaching. It's and students now, they are not anymore book students. They are computer students, laptops, tablets, phones, and so on. So use these things in lectures. Give time to think, an opportunity to respond. It's very important because if you want to get understanding, you need the time to think. If you don't have the time to think, you cannot get it. And then use different methods, visual, verbal, or kinesthetic. That means you have exercises, some videos, speaking, discussion. So you have different ways of communication. It's very important because the students, they have also different ways of communication, which are preferable to each one. Some were very visual, some were very verbal. They just remember what was said. Some just remember what I saw. For example, by myself, I remember just on which side of the book it was. I don't remember what someone said something. The names, never. So I need to see written. And also somebody needs to practice to do them by yourself to get in. So if you use all the mixtures, you respond more or less by one or another way to everyone. But if you use just one, it will not work. And then one of the methods which is suggested to help to understand students is a peer instruction. So I think I'm over time, so I will not do exercise because I wanted to do exercise. But the peer instruction is like, okay, I explain the concept and ask a question. I can make you vote, for example, by phone. We have some idea. Normally, if a question is well done, first response is not immediately correct. Okay, so you not understood everything. And then you give opportunity to discuss with your colleagues around you. Okay, so you say, turn to your colleague and discuss. Discuss about, convince him that you are right. And sometimes, for example, we had a question A and B, answers A and B preferable, and after discussion is C coming out. And actually the students, it was proven that the students are able to explain each other much better than teacher is able to explain you. Because I explain with my reference of knowledge, with my background and so on. And I imagine that it's very easy everything. It's so easy, it's so simple. Or I don't know, this is evident. And for students, it's not maybe evident. Okay, so maybe it's not the same reference, it's not the same understanding. And another student, he gets a tips how to understand. look, it's like this. And he shows his way how he understood with the similar background, with the similar reference system. So it's much easier to convince each other and to understand from each other than from the teacher. You don't have the same age, the same experience, and so on. And in between the students, it's very good learning method. Yeah, so I'm sorry, but I will not have a time to show you, because we had normally a question and then discussion that I will skip out. And then, but then in this case, your questions, don't do this because it takes time. Don't do for any question. It has to be conceptual questions, the principal questions, and we have to be answerable. It's not worth to ask questions. It's not possible to answer, or there is no answer. Don't cheat on the answers or things like this. But it has to be challenging. Okay, don't ask too easy questions, then you will not gain anything. Yeah, and this will initiate the synthesis, analysis, interpretation, critical thinking. And always you need to begin with easier questions. Okay, you open, so you are attracted. Okay, I know. And then you warm up and you go up. And then you increase the level. Don't put immediately hard questions. Frustration. Okay? Don't create frustration. Create first satisfaction and then slowly go down. Yeah. So, and give time to think and to discuss. And you can, if you see that it's stopping, then you give some hints to help to advance in the thinking. Some other advices. So don't ask the question in Finnish lecture any questions. And usually no questions. No one wants to ask you a question. It would be much better, more comfortable for students to say, what do I need to explain again? Something was confusing, didn't understand some part, you want me to come back to some part? Then it's much easier. Oh, I don't understand this. Okay? Because when you say any questions, sort of you consider you understood, but maybe you want to know something else. Huh? But if you ask something confusing, then you come down and say, okay, you have right not to understand or to be confused. You accept that it might be a normal feeling of a student. When student asks a question, before getting the explanation of 1 hour on a table of equations, recite. Repeat the question in your own words to be sure that you understand what you want to know. Give again time to think. For example, if you said any questions, no questions, okay, here we go. Even you don't have a time, you just finished writing, you just finished lecture. Any questions? No questions. Okay. So there is no questions coming immediately. So you need to leave some time, like no questions, okay, we can wait, we can think, you can give this time. Don't skip this time, because you need it this time. And if you don't know the answer, it happens to everyone. Don't lie. Don't invent the theory. Say, okay, I don't know, I forget. I mean, it may be many reasons why you don't know. But you have to be honest and to say why you don't know. And also to show that it's acceptable not knowing something. Okay? And even the teacher doesn't know everything. Okay? But we are here to learn you how you have to learn, to teach you how you have to learn. The practicals. So the objective of the practicals in general, there are to ameliorate understanding, get experience in the field, and increase enthusiasm. Because, I mean, if you just give theoretical lecture, people don't like, they're not motivated students. So we had some nice practical, everyone did something experimentally, so we are more happy students, and so on. Very good. But it was shown that the classical demonstration, when I mean classical demonstration, we have experience, which is done since 10 years or 5 years on the table. We have description of the practical. Okay, put this powder with this powder, press a tablet, put to the furnace, this one with hours, and then measure the resistance and so on. You follow the procedure. Then you try to understand, to give your own understanding what happened behind to explain your practical. You write report, and that's it. And usually it doesn't really help to understand. Okay, there is some enthusiasm, practice, and so on. Illustration if you want. But it doesn't really help to understand the topic itself. And actually, if you want to help this, we should do more creative practicals. It means that there is a freedom in the practical. You have to do, there is some objectives to create some device, to do something, to measure something, to synthesize material and so on. And the students, they propose their own ways. They give predictions what will happen before doing. They try to predict what kind of a properties they will measure and so on, from their background, from their knowledge. So it gives you creative thinking, what it will be. And if you predicted something, then you're very interested to see what you predicted is right or not. So it's very important this. And also, for example, what I mean that you don't put this described from A to Z practicals. Once I let my students, okay, do what you want. You can take this computer to bring to another one and to do recording automatic and so on. The students, the practical was finished at 12. It was the first time. It was 1 p.m. They're still sitting and wanting to finish it, but I want to go. But we didn't finish, madam. So his motivation is totally different. When it's independent on this paper, you have to do as you want, as you think is useful. So it's very important, this part. It's like doing research. If someone you have to do this. Is it interesting? No. Say, oh, I think it may be this. And you try to do this. And then you see what you get. So it helps to create understanding. Get the feedback from the students. So it can be 1 or 2 sentences at the end. The most important or confusing part, but it's very important for your lecture, especially at the beginning when you create your lecture, to get this feedback from the students. Do quiz periodically, midterm evaluations, and also very good feedback, which is even its non-written language. It's the most honest language, is your body language. This is saying the most. You see, if a student's taking notes, if they respond, if they respond to your emotions, when you laugh, they laugh. If you laugh alone, then if you are not responding at all, not following your lecture. Okay, so emotions is very important. Sitting positions, sleeping position is one position, and then you listen is different. So the body language, I think it's the best feedback. It's not time consuming. Okay, so I will not read, but I will put on my slides because you will have my slides. So, but when is a feedback, I mean the learning of a student or listening, when it's ineffective and effective, I will not read. Okay, but there is a sign of acceptance, empathy, focus attention, non-verbal behavior, and so on. I leave it for you, but there is many signs which can help you to identify the emotions, the feeling of the student you having from. Yeah. Evaluating exams. It's the last part, promise. I don't ever stop that. Yeah. Evaluating. So, because, I mean, we did a lecture, and then we did evaluate. Even universities asked us to do, so it's obligatory. Okay. So we need to evaluate what? Learning achievements, general performance, and effort which was given. Then we need to do a clear grading guidelines. Because if you want student to feel that he was evaluated, or he was evaluated correctly, you need to define at the beginning what is the grading of evaluation. What is the criteria that you're going to evaluate, and how the note is composed and so on. So we need to be very explicit on the grading. It's not something which comes out at the end of your exam and over lectures. Oh, you are 6 over 20, you 10. You don't know why. What is behind? Why I was wrong? So it's very important. And evaluation, it's not necessary to put everything to exam. Because exam gives a stress. It's like learning quickly before exam and so on. So use more over time evaluation, which you can create a note. Use quiz, project, presentation, homeworks, exams, and so on. Yeah. Because if it's a standard exam, what? If it's a standard exam, if you prepare like, okay, you don't have right to use any book, anything, you come, you have a piece of paper, you answer the questions and so on, it's exam. It's a short time memory, and it doesn't serve at anything. Okay. So we don't developing what we need to develop the skills. And it forgets very quickly. After 1 week, you don't remember anything and so on. So it's very important to create the atmosphere in the exams, in these presentations and so on, where the students don't feel to be in exam, don't feel to be examinated. And this is why I put this photo, because I gave this lecture since 4 years, And last year, this was a Gabriel group, we had the lecture at 8 in the morning on Friday. You don't know what does it mean on Friday, because the party of the students is always Thursday evening. Okay? The presentation, which I will evaluate, they will evaluate, on Friday morning at 8. See, that's how the students will do. I think about their feeling at 8. Already by myself, I don't feel very well at 8. Because I like work long in the night and then sleep in the morning. So at 8, I'm not very performant. I think about also the students after the night of a part. And they need to present. So I said, okay, instead of doing standard stuff, I'm sitting, everyone is sitting, one is presenting, we're noting. But okay, bring a coffee, croissant, and so on. We drink coffee, we listen to your presentations, and I think it was the first time I got the students so motivated to present. We had the coffee, a tea, plenty of things, and we had plenty of questions from students to other students. It happened the first time. Before, it never happened. Questions, students, questions to other students. No one has no questions. And we were relaxed. We were thinking, and I didn't see any one of them doing on the phone stuff. They're listening to their colleagues. So you consider them and to get them feedback. So kill these standard things. It's not important. Okay? Then is very, very important thing is to do self-evaluation or peer evaluation. Because what we need to learn to review someone, to evaluate someone, but also to judge yourself. Okay? I am good or no? I am better than others or no? And that you can do by simply asking them to note your colleagues and so on. There is a technique not to get, because if you say, oh, evaluate your colleague, okay, I put a maximum note. This is the way. But actually what you have to do, that evaluation, how much is just, it affects our own note. So then we're evaluating very correctly. So we need to put some conditions. Yeah. So, and then it helps to learn to understand first they evaluate the colleagues and then they put the note on themselves. And they don't have a right to put note too low or too high because it depends on the final note. It's very complicated calculation, but it helps a lot to the students to be inclined also. Yeah. And also I don't do any more exams on the white paper like this. They have a right to use everything. Books, internet, notes, everything. Because in real life, do you need to learn everything by heart? Sometimes do you ask if you need someone, I don't have anything, I will answer with stuff. You don't remember equation, you look to the book, and this is real life. So if a student is able to answer basic questions, conceptual questions, by looking to the books and so on, I'm happy. I think I did my role. So, the golden rule, and I'm finished. So be ready, be honest, be creative, and share what you have to say. So, and I liked a lot this expression. The best teachers always will show you where to look, but don't tell what to see. That's all.